Hello, my name is Brinal Kapadia, and I wanted to speak today about the earliest images of the city of Bombay by an artist that lived in Bombay and actually saw the views with his own eyes. These were drawn between the 1760s and 1770s, and all Bombay imagery prior to this was either produced by travelers that happened to be stopping by or by artists based in London who had never set foot in India and were basing their views on first hand accounts left by others. Hence, these images are considered as historically important and they give the first reliable source of what the original islands of Bombay looked like before any large scale reclamation projects were undertaken. The name of this first artist of Bombay is James Forbes, and it must be noted that at the time that these views were drawn, there was no concept of imperialism or empire, and all these views do is just soak in the natural beauty along with depictions of daily life of locals as well as Englishmen. This first view from 1768 is of present-day Horniman Circle, taken from a building that was the home of the artist. This home was behind the Asiatic Library, looking directly opposite at St. Thomas's Church, which is now a cathedral and was regarded as the zero point of Bombay. The area used to be known as the Bombay Green, and it was an open space regarded as the commercial and social center of the town. In a scene that looks like it's straight out of the beginning of a spaghetti western film, let's try and examine some of the details of the most socially active spot in Bombay of the 1760s. On the left side, we can see the old governor's house and the carriage of the then Governor William Hodges, drawn by 4 horses and preceded by a retinue of almost a dozen hornblowers, indicating at least some level of self-importance and projection of power. Bales of cotton are left in the open, unguarded, indicating that this view was taken during a season of good weather. An employee of the company is seen being carried in an open palanquin with 2 personal guards with drawn swords preceding him. The green area was also used as a parade ground for soldiers of the company. We can see a military drill taking place in front of the church. An unusual event that took place around this time was that a woman called Bastock was tried and convicted of witchcraft when she claimed to have cured sick people by charmed rice. She was sentenced to 11 lashes at the door of the church. An Englishman taking his afternoon constitutional under the shade of a parasol, and a variety of palanquin designs, carriages, and traders along with other administrative buildings make up the rest of this view of early Bombay life. The well depicted in the bottom right was very likely one of the many built by wealthy philanthropists of the 18th century to service the hundreds of traders and brokers that worked under a large banyan tree in the Bombay Green. The tree exists in Horniman Circle Garden, and this well was probably demolished to make way for the Elphinstone, now Horniman Circle urban development scheme. The location of this well is a good approximation to a well that was recently found during a restoration project of an old pyao or drinking water fountain, and a trapdoor under the banyan tree revealed its existence. The lack of a banyan tree near this well might prove it's not the same well though. Even though the second view from 1771 is titled A View of Bombay from the Malabar Hills, it is actually in fact taken from Kambala Hill, specifically from Kemp's Corner today. We know this because on the bottom right of the image, one can see an old carriage road which today still exists as Warden Road, and the small pedestrian causeway is now Ridge Road which connects Kambala and Malabar Hills. One of the Parsi towers of silence can also be seen at the top of the hill in the middle right side of the image. In the middle bottom, one can see Forbes himself with his sister, who was accompanying him at this time, dressed impressively with his long coat and possibly powdered wig, and his sister donning a Chinese silk dress, a bonnet, and a pompadour, and both being shaded from the afternoon sun by a parasol. They seemed to be ready for a day out, as if they were off to explore the English countryside. Their posture seems to suggest them as being quite still and tranquil, just soaking in the marvelous unabated view of the island in all its glory, with its rice fields and coconut plantations from a vantage point that delighted many a generation. The small body of water in the middle was Gwalior, August Kranti Maidan today, with grand bungalows with grand names such as The Retreat and Tankerville built on its edge. On February 10, 1822, the headlines across all local newspapers read that a tiger had come to quench its thirst at Gwalior Tank the night before and ran up a path between the Hermitage and Prospect Lodge. According to a late 19th century historian, this particular view in question was taken from right next to the Hermitage, which would have been at the turning of Pedder Road into Altamont Road, partially covered by the Kemp's Corner Bridge today. Prospect Lodge was an old traveller's inn at the edge of Anstey Road off Altamont Road, a cul-de-sac close to the Antilia residence. Hence, we can be fairly certain that the tiger had run up Altamont Road, with the imprint of its feet clearly visible the next morning. Altamont Road is not visible here due to the angle of the point of view. Girgaon village can be seen on the left side of the image. This magnificent view of the town and fort of Bombay was possible only because it has been shown closer by than it actually is for representational purposes. In reality, Fort and Colaba is much more further off, as is evident from the slightly later view from a similar close-by point. The most prominent structures here are the lighthouse at Colaba, along with St. Thomas's Church and various company buildings. A lesser known but very much conspicuous structure in this view is a windmill built by the company for grinding wheat and was approximately at the point where Flora Fountain is today. For hundreds of years, for any incoming visitor, may it be a British or Portuguese trading vessel or a pilgrim from somewhere on the west coast of India coming to pray at Banganga on Malabar Hill, this view from 1773 represents probably the first sight they would have had of tracts of land on the island of Bombay. All the structures lining this first port of Bombay would today have existed on the other side of the wall from Shahid Bhagat Singh Road and P. De Mello Road, approximately behind the stretch starting from Lion Gate and Asiatic Library up to St. George Hospital. This view represents the main look of the fort area from the sea as it would have appeared for much of the 18th century. Some of the old East India Company buildings still survive, though in a modified form. While some of the buildings on the left of the image served as administrative offices and homes for the company employees, the structure in the middle, with the pier jutting out into the water, survives as the collector's office today, formerly being the old custom house. As does the tower in the background, the Old English Church, now St. Thomas's Cathedral. This print also offers a scarce view of the erstwhile Bombay Castle and Fort George. Dock developments and other alterations to the fort precinct, however, long obscured this particular view. A notable feature in this view is the relatively taller tree next to the flag that stands out amongst the other palm trees. While the rest are coconut or toddy trees, this particular one was the brab or date tree. It was one of the prominent landmarks for an incoming ship and very much visible behind the Asiatic Library for quite a few decades, braving many a cyclone and decay. Whereas most palms live about 100 years, the date palm lives and continues to bear fruit for over 200. The bastion of Bombay Castle that was built around this growing tree used to be called the Brab Tree Bastion. The flagstaff and a brab tree were used as navigational markers as one approached the island, in order to avoid capsizing due to the corals and shallow rocks scattered across the inlet. Sometime in the mid-1750s, the cash-strapped Portuguese sold a magnificent bell made in the year 1516 to the British, which was strung up at St. Thomas's Cathedral and remained so for about 130 years. As the tide in the affairs of men would ebb and flow like the sea, the bell on this tower would occasionally toll to mark the highs and lows of existence, quickly withdrawing back into silence in apparent indifference.